I'm like, I know you guys can read a bio or whatever, but I was like, did I even, maybe take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about me? But let me first say on why I kind of went to the topic. So it's a couple of things. Uh, so one, Sergeant Chevet, congrats on being on paternity leave. He's watching from the house or whatever he's doing. So that's pretty awesome. I like that you get more time with the fam. It's a big deal. But he was asking me, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? I said, well, what kind of topics would you like? Right. So, uh, um, so I love to have choices, but I also love more to refuse the choice that I've asked you for. I'm just joking, but so I say that to say, it gave me a lot of options and a lot to think about in terms of what I wanted to talk about with you guys. For me, man, I really appreciate the ability we get with technology and communication. So you can talk to folks that are not physically around you versus when you go to a top 3 meeting and you're inside the forum and you're, I like the engaging piece, right? The personal engagement piece, but it's nice to be able to talk to folks that are far and away. But when we talked about, when we were looking at what it is I'd like to talk about, I was kind of mulling over it and going back and forth, uh, and I was having a little trouble, right? Saying like, man, what would I talk about? And so, oddly enough, because your top 3, I believe, was started by this individual, but Chief Maldonado and I were chatting out front at SLS, and I was like, man, I just can't. I need to make a decision that sits right with me, or I will think about it a lot. And so he's like, man, what about, we kind of went through a few things, and so he's like, what about like peek behind the curtain? And so it's very generic, it's very broad. And typically, I don't necessarily like that, but there's a beauty in that too. One, it gives me an opportunity to kind of talk about just some different things. Sure, these things that I'd like to get after and hear, and seek your thoughts. But then it also gives you guys an opportunity to ask me things. And so as we go through this, I encourage jumping in and asking some questions. Anybody that's met me knows that I like that because I can assume all day what I think you want to know about. But really, unless you speak up about it, I'm just going to go off of what's in my head, right? And so you lose an opportunity. So that's why I decided on peek behind the curtain when it was offered as an idea. So thanks, Chief Maldo, for a little bit of idea on that, and Sergeant Gail, who's my right hand, always tugging at my sleeve, being like, "Can you please give me an answer to give these people so we can send this flyer out?" All right. So that being said, peek behind the curtain and what's on my mind. A little bit about me, for those of you that have not read my bio or anything. I'm a personnelist by trade. I've done a lot. I've never really left my career field in terms of AFSC swapping. I've had a lot of amazing opportunities put in front of me, or I went after, which I do know has a lot to do with just kind of being open-minded and I don't know, feeding. I'm going to say feeding my soul, because for me, I just need to be doing something all the time. If I'm doing it, then I need to be doing it. So I say that to say, I've worked at every level. I've worked at a wing. I've worked at a squadron. I've been on a flight. I've worked at on air staff 2 different times. I've been deployed a few times. This last time it was for a year. I've been a travel planner. You talk about a peek behind the curtain. Travel planner to Chief Master of the Air Force, Chief Wright. I worked at a numbered Air Force, traditional since NAV, and I've just had a lot of things I've worked on in IG, and so that's where I've gotten all my peeks behind the curtain. I got to learn about a lot of different things. I got to see the way people view things, and man, if that don't shape you, if you're in the room, then pay attention, because that right there is, I firmly believe, is what made me stand back from the way I used to be when I initially came in, which was maybe like, you think you have your one way set of thinking, and then as you go and you say, you know what, I'm a little more open to this or that because I can see other perspectives. And so I say that to say we're all senior NCOs in here, right? And if you're not that, you know it. If you're not ready to admit that to yourself, as far as being open-minded, there's somebody else out there that knows it to you, about you, right? But we all know whether or not we're this thing. And that right there, to me, is going to determine whether or not you're going to be able to bring your aperture and be receptive to more, if I had to put it generically. And so, all right, so I say that, so that's just a little bit about me that kind of shapes the way my mind is. All right, so man, I had a lot of thoughts when we talked about this topic. I'll peek behind the curtain. So my first thought is I will throw a couple of things out there about what I think you guys might want to talk about. But I'll put them out there, but then I'll just talk a little bit about some development and stuff. So for me, when I said, man, if there were some things that you guys wanted to hear about or had questions about, maybe to get an opportunity to ask about, it's probably the first thing that came to my mind was probably strats, right? How that works or whatever. I'm happy to talk about it. I don't know, EFDP maybe, because we have individuals that work for us and we are directly responsible for them, and we do have direct say as senior NCOs on how that works for them. So I thought that was something. And then I'll say development in general, because as a command chief, that's part of that is something that I am charged with, and blessed to have a commander that is like, yeah, let's get after this thing. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. For those of you that have received it, we talked at SLS largely about the information we got for the gathering before that, which was an offsite, which is leadership inside of here, talked about some things, and then we brought it back, and then we developed it out there with leadership throughout AFRS. And the main topic was where we need to focus development, in particular for our enlisted. And so that being said, that was about flight chief, and they called it the center of gravity. And I'm hoping a lot of people heard about that. I can't see everybody on the screen. I'm at least getting a head nod from Huerta, but I hope so, because it's a big deal. And if you aren't it, you probably been it, or you were it, right? You were it, or you're hoping to be it, because maybe you got a line number and you're already being leaned for it, and you're in the top 3, right? So I talk about that because, man, it's important. But this is where we, even if you've already done it, well, especially if you've already done it, where we have a lot of say and ability to start change. So that's a big focus right now, flight chief development. And basically how we're going to get that plan. So I'll say the group chiefs and chiefs in general, we're talking about it. We're going to figure out how it is we want to go about it. But I'm going to tell you right now, who do you think we're going to ask to help us develop it? It's going to be all of y'all. And so I say that to say is, man, you can sit there and be like, oh, I never just say just, never put the word just in front of your title, right? I'm just a master sergeant, I'm whatever. Man, it all starts right there. When you get that rocker on the top, that is real talk, right? You have just walked into the room and you are now part of the they. All the things you guys was talking about before, oh, they said this, they said that. Who is they? It's you. It's all of y'all. And so I say this to say, when we talk about development, we need your help in this. And so generically, because we haven't come up with a plan, and this is also fresh from, me talking today and about what we just had at SLS, which is very recently, just the other week, is we got to get a plan together to start building our folks, whether you have a line number and you're going to be a flight chief, or you don't have a line number and that's something they're looking at for you. Or for those that have already done it and are sitting on here, like, we need to develop something so we can get our folks starting at the lower level, right? We'll say tech sergeant, so that when you get into that spot where you are taking care of people and you're leading folks and you're doing things that you feel more comfortable about it. And so that's one of the things that's on my mind right now, and that we will be getting after, because one, the boss endorses it, so therefore that's what we're doing. And so, yeah. Anybody got a question for me on that or anything? Or you're just all in listen mode? Okay.
Chief, I did have a question.
Yeah.
Were there certain areas that you discussed on the development piece of the flight chiefs?
Yeah.
And what they're?
Yes, great question. So thanks. Yeah. So first, right, I know there's the 7 mission critical tasks. That's how you guys say it, right? So sure, that's in there. For me, on the front of the conversation, talking with the chiefs and I say group chiefs, and then certain chiefs who like developments in their job are like, that's the thing they love. I see you, Chief Hart, smiling too. He's one of them, right? Man, I will tell you that whether or not you guys like it, because leadership is leadership, but administrative duties are the thing that'll get you and hold you down. And I don't mean hold you down like you want to be held down. I mean hold you down like, dang it, I thought I was going to be home tonight, but I got to be able to manage these things, because once you get that rocker, right, welcome to management, right? You have to be able to take care of your people and do those things. So if you can't build those things sufficiently, or at least feel prepared when you're going into it, all of the other things, unfortunately, happen to take the back burner, right? Yeah, we'll talk about whatever in a minute, but I got to get these EPBs done. And I got like 7 declarations I got to review and write on, right? And so that's a couple of the things that we talked about in terms of, hey, what do we need to make sure? We need to make sure we set you up here, even if it's, and I'm not talking about being perfect, right? I'm just talking about how maybe get a schedule going, manage that, do whatever, we'll say the pro suit kind of needs you to do. So if you can manage your area, right? If I'm just talking about flight chiefs right now, right? Then you don't have them on your back. That's a real thing, right? And then you feel more confident in getting after the other things. And that's really what I'll say the crux of it is, right? If you feel a little confident about getting after a thing that you know is in your job chart, that you know is your task, like I think that will determine the way in which you go after other things. Anything to add or ask, anyone? Okay. Is that good? And then like, do you have anything to add to it, right? Something that we're not thinking of? You guys got something to add for that?
Okay. Chief, the only thing that I would add, just from experience, the health of our graduated flight chief positions.
Yeah.
For instance, like when I came into my position, and I've talked to a lot of other flight chiefs who were similar, but not having like an ops chief, a senior chief at one time, there's usually like an interim filling something. So I felt for my development when I got into being a flight chief, that was something that I felt hindered it, because at the time when I came in, we had a pro suit, but we didn't have an ops chief or a senior trainer. So essentially the pro suit was running the whole show, by himself. So that training kind of trickled down a little bit slower than it would have if we were healthy.
Yeah, that's valid, right? Okay. Well, I tell you, we will have training be a part of it. We're going to absolutely focus on that and the things that we need. And we get that from, right? So, policy, as you know, is kind of made at your staff level stuff, right? And not that it's policy, right? So it's above that, but like, I'll say there's a tendency to think, oh, well, it's all coming from the top down, right? And so there's a truth to it, right? But it's a two-way street. So we get the information, learning what they need from the field, but the field got to speak up about it, right? And so these are things that we need. You can fuss about it, or we can talk about it and say, hey, can we highlight these things? And that is why we have our trainers, our sections in there that say, hey, this is what they're going to focus on. So I do know already that is something we're going to start highlighting. It's coming down, but we got to start thinking about that things, because when we're part of it, there's something to be said when we're part of it versus just fussing on it on the side and working through with what you got. I just saw Katrina on here. Hello, ma'am. I know that face was a long time ago. I'm well, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. Finally got access. Sorry, I'm late.
Ooh, all good. Okay. So that was kind of it in a nutshell. Okay. All right. And I want to talk about what I think we need. So I'm trying to think about opportunities, right? So opportunities of things that we can do to get folks developed. So some of the conversation we get is, and I'll say this from a senior NCO standpoint, it's been in, whether it's if I'm in a first sergeant meeting, there are all senior NCOs in there, right? Talk about with chiefs, right? Kind of just amongst, just kind of generic conversation, if you will. And it's about everybody wants to be developed and there's different ways to go about it. You get some organizations, you can see that, man, they just got an opportunity. I know for one group, they just went out and they have some folks who are getting a 4-day course and they're getting a coaching opportunity, right? So that's great. Love it. And as we try to think of different things that are traditional or non-traditional, the things that I can maybe help with that are maybe not so traditional, but maybe as beneficial, are things like, and I've been thinking about this one a little bit lately, is like maybe a shadow program or something. So we talk about a peek behind the curtain. I thought, man, we do things in here where, so inside of recruiting, I'm like, it's like a big family reunion all the time. Like everybody knows kind of what everybody does. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. We just do, right? I'm the one learning, right? But for the most part, you guys know where you come in. Even if non-traditional, someone comes in and, they've been in the game a little bit less, right? But less than others. But for the most part, everybody comes in, they're on the bag, and then they move on through these positions. And you kind of know what your track is, and you kind of know what everybody does. So there's a beautiful thing about that because you kind of know what's coming, right? I would imagine. But then there's also this thing, it's like, man, like I already kind of know what's coming. Is there something different in it? Maybe I'm on the fence and it's my first, I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to do the MOI and I'm going to stay and make this my thing, or if I'm going to go back to what it is I used to do and the choices we have to make. And so what are some of the things that maybe we can control to, whether it's entice you to stay or make you say, man, I may not want to stay here and do this, but what I would maybe like to do is go and try this, whether it's, becoming an officer or go back to my specialty, my core specialty, and try out for X, Y, or Z, right? And so some of those things I don't think we get to realize unless maybe we do something different. And the realization can go either direction. Yeah, this is actually, I do want to stay in what it is, stay and do this thing. Or maybe I do want to go back because I realize that this is whether it's better for you or for your family. And so one of the things when I was talking about, I was thinking about was this shadow program. And so it's kind of a thought. There's definitely support there, but kind of an idea of where folks, and I know it can be difficult when we're in a community where people are coded, if you will, into doing a thing because that's what they're here to do, right? And so you have to figure out how you can get, make it so that everybody can participate, even if it's a competitive thing. And so, for example, if you had a shadow program where someone can see what is a day in the life of, whether it's the boss or myself or something like that, and you can do it for a 2-day stint or something, because for whatever, right? It's a good opportunity. And then maybe you're going down the road and you're going, man, I am enticed to maybe be a command chief one day or work on staff, or I don't know what it is, right? But looking for things like that. And so that's one of the things, that I've been thinking about lately, and just try to figure out the way you can do it and get the biggest bang for your buck, whether for the individual, but also for us to show you what it is we do in here. Because I think that a lot of times that there's just, I did it. I speculated about what was happening in the headquarters before I got to a headquarters. And then I got there and I was like, okay, it's a little different than I thought. And then some of it I was like, just like I thought, right? And so just something a little different to maybe think about. Do I get any thoughts on that?
Ma'am, that's interesting. A while ago I was brainstorming with one of my buddies, and something that we were discussing was possibly having like two different tracks within AFRS. So for example, there like you spoke about, there's a clear kind of career progression within AFRS that involves being a flight chief and going on and doing tier 3B and all these different things. So something that my friend and I were discussing was the possibility of not having to be a flight chief, because there's plenty of great NCOs out there that maybe might be the best flight chiefs, right? So being an ops chief, we can have like a great NCO that is primed and ready to be an ops chief, but not necessarily go through that track of being a flight chief. To be quite frank and honest, I think sometimes we have flight chiefs out in the field that may be hurting their recruiters, or just don't have the leadership capability, or and I understand that everyone can develop, but just having that opportunity that we may retain talent within AFRS, that people that are more geared towards ops, or maybe a training role, but understanding that they would be capped at either a tech sergeant or a master sergeant, and couldn't go and become a senior, and the only way to become a senior would be to go back and be a flight chief whenever they feel that they're ready, or to jump back into that other career progression.
Okay, so I hear you on that, right? You talk about leadership. Man, leadership is leadership, but not everybody gets an opportunity to really like hone it, right? So sometimes we get stuck in a place where we are just working, and you feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, right? You feel like you're just working, you never get to maybe showcase this thing that either you have in you, or you don't know what to do with it, because maybe you're I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, like one man show or one woman show, right? You're out there doing a thing, and you have a little bit of a crew around you, but maybe you just don't have an opportunity to put that out there, right? And so then maybe that could lead you to be, I'll say, falling behind or ill prepared to do a thing, just because your number's up. Like, it's your time to be it. Can I ask you a question though? So I see the necessity in being a flight chief. I absolutely do. But I also know that just there may not be opportunity, even if we're short right now, right? Like, maybe there's just not enough opportunity or whatever. So do you feel like if you don't get that you don't get to be the other things?
Like I said, I think with specifically like maybe the ops track, like you can work at a group ops, or even AFRS ops, or whatever it is, but I don't necessarily think that the prerequisite for that is being a flight chief. And that was just like a brainstorming thought that we were just kind of like throwing out there, just because, like I said, there may be some flight chiefs out there that I just don't feel that they're prepared, and like I said, it could hurt people out in the field if they're not prepared to lead. But I don't know, it's just a random thought.
Don't set your random thought aside. I think it's a great thought. I think if it's enough for you to talk about it up front and here and say, hey, this is something that we're looking at, I promise you're not the only one that's thinking it. At the end of the day, there is not enough positions for everybody. At the end of the day, sometimes we do a thing, and I'll call it absolutes, and we say, in order for you to do this, then you've got to do this. But you're absolutely right, Sergeant Perez. Not everybody is ready for that, which actually goes back to what I talked about on the development piece. We can tell everybody that, hey, at some point, this is a thing that you should do, or we want you to do, but that don't mean you're ready for it. That's real talk. You got chiefs in here that will tell you that they were like, yo, I wasn't ready for that when I was there. And if I could go back, I would do X, Y, Z. Or, hey, I was lucky enough that someone came in and said, hey. And then to your point, people don't want to talk about it because you feel like either, maybe there's something negative that's going to come by saying it, by you saying, some people shouldn't lead. There's a little truth to that, right? And I don't like to say it but it's necessary in that, I think it's a very small percentages that shouldn't lead in terms of like the negative sense of it. And there's some that you shouldn't, as in you're not ready yet. We ain't prepared you. And in our responsibility, and when I say our, I mean senior NCOs, but largely for our chiefs, like that's what our responsibility is. Because if we got the seniors out here or whatever position you're in running and trying to help, guide and manage an organization, right? Then we're already here. So our job is to be a part of that and make sure that it happens. And so that is where we start working with each other and making sure that we can kind of build that. And so, yes, for your saying, hey, maybe you don't need to do that. Do you have to do that? Maybe you can go maybe do some staff work without having to do that. Yep. I believe absolutely you can.
Can I? Oh.
Yeah. Please jump in, whomever that is. I don't know.
Sorry, McCall. So
hey.
this is something that I wish a lot of the reserve recruiters were on this line right now, because this is something that we definitely have been talking about for years, about how there are so many people that are in leadership that were not ready to be in leadership. Unfortunately, we do have the good old boy system. Unfortunately, we do have those, okay, well, I'm going to put my boy in, my girl in, or I'm going to look out for them. And so, because they may have good numbers does not automatically make them a great leader. So just because you can put people in, you want to put them in these leadership roles, and they didn't even master the relationships or master, showing any type of leaders that they could be any type of leader when they was on the line. So what make you think that by bringing them in and putting them in a leadership role that it's going to make a world of difference? I remember when I first came in, going back to just, being on in the operational force as a 1 Charlie, I remember having a flight chief that she didn't want to be a flight chief. She didn't want to be a supervisor. And so I am so adamant about things. I'm so pumped up. Like when I have something I'm going on, like I'm just like, all right, I'm very proactive with, with things and everything. And so she didn't like that. So the day that I came in to take my EOC, she gave me paperwork, and I'm like, what am I getting paperwork for? Like never got paperwork. I'm still an airman. So I'm like, what am I getting paperwork? Because you're too proactive. I'm like, what kind of crap is that? I'm too proactive, so you're going to give me paperwork? And so, later on, she was just like, well, I told them not to send you to me. And so this is, the end results of it. And so what I had to do is I had to take that bad and say, okay, well, when I become the role that you're in, I'm going to learn from that, and I'm not going to be that type of person. But we have so many people that's in leadership right now that shouldn't be in leadership, don't know how to be a leader, but yet, they're going to be the ones that rise to the top. But you have those ones that are really dedicated or, really love their job and really adamant about helping airmen. They're not going to make it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the term lift as you climb?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Right. And so I will tell you, so sometimes we're putting in a thing. So I just had this conversation not 1 hour ago, talking about how sometimes, so hear me out. We trick folks, right? We say, hey, what is it that you want to do? I say we, I'm talking about, I'll just say chief for this case, right? In this scenario was a chief. Hey, what do you want to do? Right? Well, I want to X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, that's really good. So let me tell you what you're going to do. So here's what you're going to do, right? And so sometimes it's a little game where you're saying, hey, I know that's what you want to do, but this is what we need you to do. And then sometimes what I know you're getting at, because you were very plain statement about it, which is fine to me, is we are hooking someone up. Now, I like to think, I know it happens, right? And I will never sit on here and sit around and act like it don't, because it does happen. And I think it's good to talk about it. I think that it's good to address it, ask the questions professionally about, hey, when that kind of thing does happen. And then it's what you do with it in your position while you're in it. And so I hate the whole scenario you just explained about how someone, for me, when I hear you say all that, I try to think of an individual that's maybe, and I could be wrong, but maybe I'll say intimidated by you or something, or was at the time, right? Hey man, maybe they felt like you were doing the things that they should. So I hate the way that happened, and I hope that you remember it, but I hope it doesn't guide you for everything you do. In other words, that negative piece. And from the little bit of talking I've had with you just today, I don't feel like that's the case. But I will tell you that that's a reality. And I don't like it. And so for me personally, like where I can have effect on that, I'll always bring it up. But I can only speak for me. I can only control what I can control. And so unfortunately, when we're working inside of that kind of stuff, my natural thing is to go positive on it and be like, all right, I will always address it. I'll talk about it. Truth hurts sometimes, but we're going to talk about it, and we'll do something where we can. Not everybody's ready for leadership, but for me, I've had something similar, right? And so I had a boss. I'm like, man, they don't even want to be here. Everybody don't want them here. And I caught myself, I caught myself, but I wasn't telling myself about it. And I was talking to, one of my, I'll say mentors. We didn't call it mentors back then. She was just someone that I looked to for advice or whatever. And she was like, hey, you're doing that thing that you don't like. And that is you're getting caught up in the whole, I can't stand what this individual is or what they're doing and how they got there, right? And really, after we talked about that, I backed up a little bit. And it took a little work on my end, right? But if you want it and you're going to be diligent about it and really try, maybe you can have effect on that individual. A lot of times, like you said, you started off saying this individual said, I don't even want to be this, whatever this is. So in this case, I'm going to say flight chief. So sometimes we get put into something and go and kick and screaming and they don't want to do it. And then the way they act or they are about things, either sometimes it's negative because that's the way they operate. I can't help you with that, right? But for some people, it's a reaction to going into something and feeling ill-prepared. And so they can take a defensive or offensive standpoint. And so some people, when you do the defensive, then everything else is like this, you know what I mean? It's like whack-a-mole. You're just trying to knock everything out and you're not even really thinking about what you're doing. You're just trying to survive. And then sometimes you need that team that comes in. And that's where I talked about the lift where you climb is not going to become evident until you can see that maybe you need something from the others around you. And even more so if you realize that it comes from the individual that is the technical savvy individual, likely, even though you need something from up here, because you need the information from both directions. And so sometimes I think, so if I'm going to say you in that scenario, or me when I was in that scenario, right, I had to be like, all right, how can I approach this? Even though I wanted to come in there straight face and be like, I don't need to help you. I'm going to watch you fail. Guess what? We are all in the same organization and I need to do something. So we're going to figure out how I can manage this. Sometimes it's not going to work. But what won't happen is you won't say, I didn't try and do my part. Because then I'm really just working for the very thing that I'm complaining about. And I know that sucks to say it, but we're senior NCOs, y'all. And sometimes we just got to get with some of the things that are out there. And it's going to suck. But damn it, when they talk about, this is one of those very things where when we talk about, we go because it's uncomfortable. Having a conversation. Sometimes we walk around and say, yeah, can you tell me I look fat in this dress? Tell me the truth. I want to know, girl. No, you don't. Do you want to know? If you really want to know, you're going to ask the person that's going to tell you. And the person is going to tell you, you'd be like, that doesn't fit your figure. And I need you to wear this one over here. Either you wanted to hear it or you were going to wear it anyways. Whatever it is, that's on you, but just know what you're asking. And so at the end of the day, I know that this is, as much as we massage it and we're going to try to prepare we're not going to try. We are going to develop a program and we are going to develop our people better and make them feel more prepared about going to the positions that they're going to do. But we need each other's help to do it. The chiefs has heard me say this before. I believe I said it at ASA, and I know I said it at SLS. I prefer to be collaborative, right? That is my preferred form of working. But sometimes, and because I think we work best that way, but sometimes we just got to say, here's what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to get after it. And then you're going to get on board and do it. But I think you're more open to things and change and doing better if we kind of look at it and say, all right, what good can we get and come from this? And to your very point, for both Perez and McCall, right? Like, we want this positive thing. Maybe I don't want to do this in a traditional manner if I'm talking for Perez. And then for McCall, you're like, man, this is what I get. I work so hard, and the thing I want, I can't even have, and I got to deal with all of this. Okay, we realize it. Don't let it be the thing that guides you and detracts you from the thing that you need to do or want to do, though. Because you're just going to be stuck right where you're at. And so, but I do think it's important that we talk about it, and then so we can get after it. Because the more you have the conversation, and I'm not talking about fussing conversations, there's always a little room for that, but everything can't be fussing. It has to be like, all right, what action are we going to put behind it? And so you're going to go back to this very top three, right? We have this top three that is developed inside of here, right? This has been around for how long? A couple years now, 3 years? AFRS top three? More?
I want to say it was like 2017, 2018.
So I don't know how many years, but they were, yeah. So I got Chibar. Well, I mean, I was just said, he was like, we just started this. I don't know what time frame it was, but okay. So that's not very long. 5 years. I mean, it's not long. So I have a question for you. This is really great for all of us in here, right? We all talking to each other. We're saying the same things. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that you get everything you need just out of here, or do you guys go out and get this from the other top threes? Where you can. I understand why it was built, and I understand the importance of this. But did you go out and get some of these outside thoughts and perspectives from other top threes or other opportunities for development?
I think, in person for me is always going to be best, but
yeah,
with the geographic separation of everybody, I think this is, we're making the best of what we can and with what we have. Yeah. And, I think this is the best format that we can do for the circumstances that we are in. However, yes, I believe in-person, face-to-face communication is always going to be preferred over virtual.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, maybe I said it wrong, but I mean, this I think is amazing. When I was like, man, they got their own top three in here. I love it. Right. Because I think there is something to be said about being able to talk to each other in the language in which you guys talk about it. Right. I say you guys as in someone who's, I ain't never been on a bag. I mean, it's super interesting to me. I can never know those pressures and the demands that are put upon you to produce. Right. And so I think on that, but I also think about the things we get in the same virtual concept that you get in joining on the outside. Right. Even if you don't have any desire to leave recruiting, right, you get it on the outside and you get that development that comes inside. And that's where leadership, right, you have it, but it's also formed by getting opinions and points of view from others, at least in my experience, right? And I'm open if someone says, nah, but I mean, really, if you think about it, be open-minded to what I'm saying. If everybody has been doing good majority of all the same thing in here, then what do you think your conversation is in all of the same in here? And do you think that you can benefit? You don't have to answer me. It's just something for you to write down and think about. Do you think that maybe you can, ain't nothing but a button click to get on the Chiefs top three here at Randolph and JBSA or whatever? You click the button and join virtually because everybody has got different locations. You did it on my last yard. I'm sure you can do it for the top three as well. That is up to you. But I offer it in terms of, we're talking about leadership. We're talking about development. We're talking about things that you can control and learn and gain perspective. You can just learn a little bit from different. And man, even if you go in these meetings, you're like, I don't want none of that. Okay. Well, at least you was open to going to go get it. You get a lot from each other in here. But there is something to be said about getting it from out there as well. And then you bring it here. Even if you say, hey, okay, Huerta, you're on the committee, you're on development committee. This is your second year. You're running it through, right? Right. So you go out there, maybe you be the person that goes out there and take notes and, hey man, they talking about this or that, and you bring it back to us. However you want to do it. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, but I offer you that. And I promise you, this will strengthen your leadership as well, because we all need it. Everybody's not perfect. Every day I'm like, man, what can I do better? Can someone tell me how I could have answered that question better? You know, I walked into this being like, man, am I even going to give them anything they need? What do they want to ask me about? Do they want to ask me about anything? I mean, you know, we're all human, right? But we got to be open to these things. So,
one of my biggest things, if I could hop in and say something real quick to start.
Please.
I always like to reiterate the fact, never miss an opportunity that you qualify to attend, whether or not it's a top 3 chapter from a local organization from the base, whether it's AFSA, whether it's even Toastmasters. There's so many opportunities out there. So I'm definitely in full agreement in regards to everything that you're saying.
Man, I heard anybody say Toastmasters in a minute. And you can tell when someone attends Toastmasters, because you like, that was beautiful. I don't want to talk after them, right? Yeah. So I heard Toastmasters in a minute. Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's super easy to hear that. So my point, I guess, on that is and thanks for backing me up a little bit on that. I think that was George talking, right? But it's like, it's real easy to continue to hear the same thing from the same people and the same bird's eye view. And you're going to get some things for it, because we're human and we all have different perspectives and we all have things that are valid to it. Man, yeah, I think it's really important to try to go and get it from somewhere else as well, just because it may make you shape your thinking a little more differently. Especially when you get to be an old head like me, like you in it for a minute, you're like, I already know how to do that. I'm like, man, I don't know how to do that no more. That's how they used to do it. I couldn't even remember that the top 3's been around since 17. And I'm sure I got told it. I thought it was like 3 years ago. Okay. So, all right. All right. Does somebody want to ask me about something? Who's got something they want to ask me about that is unique to this position that maybe I can help with?
I have a question for you, Chief. I tell you what, as sitting in your seat, just coming into the seat, what would be your top 3 priorities, per se, in this perspective, for those senior NCOs, NCOs, for recruiting service as a whole, as far as the enlisted side?
Yeah. I don't know if I'll say like top 3 things. One thing, I talk about development, and I mean that, you know, we've been talking about it, right? But it's super easy to get caught up in this grind, right? I say it all the time. I thought I knew a little bit about recruiting, and then I get in here and I just learn about the very thing that we ask everyone to do. Sure, we got the things that are, you know, obvious. You know, they talk about, we knew someone here, you know, the family's got to go. I kind of get all that stuff. But the actual thing on talking truth, right, on having to live in a constant state of production is hard, I would imagine. So whether you are or have done it, or you're managing it because your people are doing it or whatever, a couple things come out of that for me. One, what are you neglecting on yourself, right? Whether it's taking care of yourself, however that is. I don't care if it's long walks on the beach, sitting by yourself for 30 minutes of reading, going to the preschool and reading, whatever you want to do, right? It's a very necessary thing. And it's something as simple as, I remember I went home and I think I had to get my kid from school. My husband was gone or whatever, and I had to leave at like 4. I had to be at the house by like 4 o'clock or whatever. And I was like, I felt like I took half a day off, because I had like 30 home minutes earlier or whatever, and I didn't have to such. And I was like, God damn, it was like, I felt like it was I just feel like I was on leave or something, right? But it was just 30. It was 30 minutes. Typically, you don't come out of here, at least for me, it's like around, I don't know, 1730, 1800, right? But to come home and be there for like that 30 minutes was everything. So that's one thing. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's a deliberate thing, and we got to manage that in our schedules. And that ties to your leave. And I know that we choose work over our leave all the time, but y'all got to stop that. You have to stop it. You got to figure it out. And it's a little hard. It gets harder the longer in the tooth you get. Okay. And so it's like, work out a plan, something. And I know everybody has their thoughts on it, right? But that real talk, right? development, man. Not everybody wants to go to school. That's fine. You're a senior NCO. We know you got your CCF already. School ain't the end all be all. I get it. It's not for everybody, but you don't have to just go to school. You can find development in other things. And it's important. And I will always say it is education, whatever it is. I'm not talking necessarily about traditional school. Education is yours and no one can take it from you. I don't care if you get removed from a position, fired, whatever, you decide I'm going to retire tomorrow, whatever the case may be, that is yours and it is yours. And you can do with it what you will, but it makes you stronger mentally, whether it's walking into a conversation and being able to have an in-depth level conversation or to just be in random facts that you picked up on doing a thing, but it's good for you. And I really need to make sure that we do that. And then, I don't know, you say top 3. I don't really cage them like that for me. But like, you know, does anybody really sit down and take the time? You know, we haven't talked about it. It was a buzzword for a while, and they talk about airman's time. And for me, airman's time is just taking time out. I don't care if it's, you know, when I had a flight, it's like, all right, every, you know, whatever 2-3 days we sit down and we talk about a thing and we knock work out real quick. And then that last 30 minutes is, hey man, what's going on with you? Hey, you do X, Y, and Z with the family. Those things are super important and they build a bond. And if you can get those 3 things right, and I'm sure you guys have things you want to add on, if you can get that right inside of your life, I promise you it's going to make it easier in the thing that we have to do every day because we choose to wear this cloth and do it. So, yeah, develop yourself. You need to take care of yourself. I know that's a lot of self, but I know you guys are going to after a job by the very nature of what it is we do. Was that good or you need something more? That answer your question, George?
Hey, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, ma'am. Sarn Smith here, St. Joseph, Missouri recruiter. I am wondering if there's anything that you have seen being new into the position at headquarters level, like in regards to like policy change. Are there conversations that are stemming from the actual field, like you know, from new recruiters or seasoned or, you know, certified recruiters, like what we're dealing with, and is that getting to your level that there's that y'all are taking into consideration what kind of change we're hoping for or anything like that?
I don't know about policy level, but well, development is one of them. That's absolutely one of them. We talked about how we're failing and missing on that and how we need to do better for our people. That is a resounding. And right now, how, to be quite honest with you, most of the conversation about is how we cannot, you know, the boss will say it all the time, and you guys aren't maybe not be in those meetings, but man, we can't manage this pace like that we're doing right now. And you guys have done a tremendous job, like the numbers and where they're at. And so basically it's how can we make our new normal? And it can't look like this because it's not bearable. It's not conducive to you. Sure, it gets us numbers of where we're at, but we can't, and we have to remain diligent on it because, you know, without getting all the details right, I think that we just took for granted that recruits were coming in and we were going to have them and it was always be good. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, we don't have anybody left in the reserve, right? There's nothing in the depth. And so therefore we are where we are. And so a large part of the conversation is you know, how can we you know, how can we make our new norm better? And along with that has to go, you know, we have all this, the SG stuff in terms of MHS Genesis, how all of the medical stuff it's been so hard. And so they talked about it, SLS is how we're trying to work some waiver things to make it a little easier for you for like, you know, food allergies, keratosis for your eyes and kind of various waivers, et cetera, that we can do to kind of ease it. But at the end of the day, all of those things roll up into the well-being of our recruiters, which affects everyone, if you will, right? So is that what you mean? Or is there something in particular you're looking for? And if you are, ask it. because that's easier than the guessing game.
No, ma'am. I think that's kind of essentially what I was talking about. I think that the development, obviously being a tech sergeant and having been in special duty for a hot minute there, it's extremely hard to. I'm actually doing shadow training right now, and one of the discussions were about, not having airmen, unless you're a flight chief, and we develop ourselves, our peers and everyone else at this level when we're all kind of these worker bees, right? Except the flight chiefs and so forth. So I think the development aspect of what you were saying, that they are having conversations about that at headquarters, which is great to know, that we're, cared for and cared about, and helping us develop our future, leaders. Because that's literally why we're in the seat, right? Is to replace ourselves. So yes, you answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah. And we're going to we have those 91 senior airmen, right, coming. So somebody's getting somebody soon. And man, embrace that opportunity. And remember, when you as a senior airman, whether or not you got that, I think it's always important to remember, man, when I was here or there, right, what was it that I did or didn't get? Whether you're going to model the behavior, or you're going to be like, man, if there's one thing I'm never going to do, and it's that. And take it seriously, because we've already identified it years ago, right? They talked about, there was a talk about, you've seen that graph that talked about when you get your initial CME, right? Oh, go to ALS. And then the long wait for NCOA, and what happens in the middle, and whether or not you have the ability to get after it, because depending on whatever job you do, or whether or not you're interested in doing it, or anybody's encouraged you to do it, all the things. And then you do that. And then you talk about coming into a career field. Well, maybe you were a senior airman when you came into it, and then you never had an opportunity to do any of those things. You never had to lead anybody. You never had to, except for peer leadership, which, while it's the hardest, it's great to have a foundation to start with on a different level, right? And so yeah, we got help coming, and hopefully more, right? Yes, ma'am. She says 3:10. Oh, I have a meeting at 3:10. She's the fun killer, but that's why I hired her, because I will do all kinds of things all day if it wasn't for the Master on Guild. So, okay. All right. So I don't know if anybody's got a last question or something they want to ask me, or maybe say, hey, I wish you would have talked about, and then maybe I can do it on the future. This was my first go at it. I don't know if I hit it, but man, if I'm open to anything, it's feedback. So send it. Tell me, and I'll try to get to it. And I didn't get to talk about a couple of things, but sorry. No, nothing.
Hey, this Chief Hart. Hey, I'm actually doing TMO right now. I'm not in uniform, just to throw that out there.
I love that you're here, though. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Hey, I know you did mention earlier about, I guess some people may want to know about the conversation when it comes to strats and those different type of discussions.
Okay, let me hit it real quick. So I'm going to tell you, first things first, I got this, and I'm really surprised, and thanks, Chief, for bringing it up, because one of y'all should have. But I'll tell you what does not happen. We don't walk in this room and go, this person right here, this is the person, that's it. That's not how it works. And at the end of the day, what we do is we have a plan, right? We go into it, and I talk with the group chiefs. So I can just tell you how I do it here. We talk with the group chiefs. We get together, and I say, hey, this is what the numbers look like. Hello? We look at the numbers, if you will, right? So what are the number of possible strats that we have based off of the audience? And I won't get into those details because I don't have a lot of time, and because you have a question. So we talk about it, and then with this year, we've come into, and they talk about the extra percentage on the end, right? And so I'm sure there's a lot of opinions about it. So you have your outright numbers 1 through, and whatever it is, right? And then you have your percentage on the end, depending on what rank you're competing for. And so we talk about that. We talk about looking at how we're going to group it. So how that leadership will go out and they'll reach back out to, I'll say in this case, we're going to talk about to the squadron chiefs who likely talk with their SELs, and they sit down and they said, all right, let's talk about who we see is ready for this thing that we see, whether it's demonstrated but oh, by the way, records are what meets a board. That is real talk. I can love somebody all day. XYZ, so-and-so does this and that, rah, rah, rah. If it ain't on the paper, then it might as well not have happened. And that is very important for all of you guys to make sure. If you don't know it already, you know it now. You know it now. It is important because that is, I've been on WAP's promotion boards, and that's what we see as the record. Okay. And you're working too fast to be like, I know Tom, John, or Melissa, right? So that being said, those conversations are had. And then in this case, with the current process we have, where we have actual numbers and we have the percentages, we take them and I said, I need you guys to group your folks up. The people that you know that you are ready to say, boom, if I could give that stripe away tomorrow, this is who should have it. Now, be mindful, in this case, we got the 3 groups. So they're all giving theirs, right? And then in this case, we said, all right. And then we look at the ones who are like, man, I see a lot of promise. They may not be there yet, but I don't want them to be lost in this conversation. And then you have your 25% that says, hey, we really like to assign this to show that they were in the conversation. So this is very generic, right? We got to work through it on that. And then you take all of that information, in this case, for the largest board, right? That's a master's competing for senior. You got to take all that information. Each one of those chiefs sit down after they have their conversations through their groups and IDDT, and we sit there and we look at them all. And then there is a conversation and we block time. We're going to block several hours and we're going to sit down. I'm bringing lunch in. Okay. So understand this conversation. We talk about it. We look through it and we say, hey, and we talk about what he or she brings, doesn't bring, and why X, Y, Z. So this is very generic, but I need you to understand that, because it's not someone where someone just walks in and they say, man, this is the one who I like. Because at the end of the day, it ain't ours. It's General Amaran's. It is the senior raiders. All I do is advise. All of us, we just advise. But what you're not going to catch is us coming in this room ill prepared. Because if they trust us enough to hire us, then we will take this business seriously. And so that being said, already talked about in here is how sometimes we realize or see or feel or whatever the word is, the descriptor, that an individual is selected for a position based off of X. And yes, there's such thing as a paper tiger. I get it. Okay. But at the end of the day, this is a thoughtful process. Okay. And as good as maybe I am or he is or she is or whatever, I don't know what everybody else is doing and I don't know what their records look like. Sometimes you do, but for a wholly you do not. And so don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in that a strat is what will make you. Because there are many more examples out there of people that make it without one than there are that make it with it. It's just the conversation is about who made it with it. Don't get caught up in it. Do your job, do it to the best of your ability, ask for help when you need it, and make it your business. What do I say? Don't talk about it, be about it where you can, and get it put to paper. And you're going to have to do a little extra work for it, and it's going to suck sometimes, but then it's a good story for later. And we can only see it when it's on paper. So you have to do that. That's your part. If it looks to me like I got conversation in my ear, right, and I'm loving this individual, and then I look at the paper, all that tells me is, unfortunately, at least what it looks like is that your SEL wants it more than you want it. And that's real talk. We're senior NCOs. And you need to have this conversation with your people because this EFDP is very similar. Your voice is what's going to get them there. And if you're doing your thing, even if you didn't show up on paper, maybe someone will go, hey, where's so-and-so's record? I don't see that in here. And they're bad to the bone. Where's their record? Let me talk about that. So there's a little bit of trust in there that you got to have. And there's a lot of accountability you got to have. Okay, so I know that's a real quick way. I got the knock again because it's 3:09 and I don't want to get in trouble for being late. Man, I appreciate you all for this. I'm starting to get to all the things. Thank you to the team for asking me to come and speak this. And I'm sorry it was difficult, but I can't promise it won't happen again in terms of picking a topic. But I appreciate this. Thank you guys for giving me a little bit of your time. And I gotta go because I got a meeting with the boss. Please send questions and I'll get to every single one. Yes.
Hey, Chief, just real quick, just want to say on behalf of the top three, we definitely appreciate your time. Behind the curtain, also the real conversation. We greatly appreciate you. And this is only one of many that we're going to have. So thank you so much.
Okay. Yes, please. I'm with it. Thank you guys so much. Ehart, thank you. Bye, fam. Take care.
Thank you, Chief.
Bye. Thanks.
All righty. For everyone on the line, we will transition into our general membership meeting. We'll take a quick break. In 2 minutes, we'll resume and get into the meeting minutes of last month and then discuss new topics for this month. So if you want to take a quick 2-minute break.
Hey, for those of you that are still on as well, too, we definitely won't keep you long. We'll get straight to the business. We definitely wanted to give the chief the opportunity to get everything out as much as she could in the allotted time. So definitely appreciate you staying on. And as soon as we kick things off, we'll definitely get to business and knock it out relatively quick.
Sergeant McCall, do you want to bring up the meeting minutes?
Yes, stand by, please.
Hey, Sir Perez, also with the recording, you want to stop the recording and start it again like last time, or will it?
Oh, yeah, good call.
Will it affect anything, or will we be good to go?
It looks, I think you stopped. You stopped it?
Nah, I didn't stop it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had too many phones ringing. I'm about to bring it up. Sergeant George, did you have a chance